Hello and welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. This is your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Mind, coming with another Black MINDZ News show. Today's date, July 16, 2019. And what's on the menu for this particular show? In Tennessee, looks like they are to commemorate the day for Nathan Bedford Forrest. There's a long extended history with this individual, especially we as BADOS or ADOS. There's some history to this, and we're going to see why of this particular time, and based on the things that are said, why is this a good time for this to be brought up? Yes, you could commemorate history. It seems like people, when they want to commemorate things of history, when it's good for them, but it seems like when we talk about history, forget about it, it's in the past. So, we're going to look at this story of Nathan Bedford Forrest and disseminate some of the history for those who may not be knowledgeable about it. So again, this is Black MINDZ News. I'm your host, Mr. Blows Your Mind, and this channel is to report, articulate, transmit, transcribe, insight, inspire. Why? Because we give the honor to the creator above. Why? Because he don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people who created this country that we call the United States, we the BADOS, ADOS. BADOS is Black American Descendant of Slaves. Some might say Black African Descendant of Slaves. Others may say American Descendant of Slaves. We give honor to our ancestors. And you know what my motto is? I'm never going to tell you what I heard. I'm only going to tell you what I know. And this is Black MINDZ News. Stay tuned for the broadcast. Hey, y'all doing? This is Mr. Blows Your Mind again with another one hitter. Today's date is July 16, 2019. First and foremost, I want to give some what's up to the fam in the house that should be subscribers. Thank you, fam, for you persistently watching the content when you get the opportunity. I thank you so much. Again, this being the hardest and the most hated show in the black corner. It's hard to get, but it's not about numbers for me. It's just about constantly keeping you updated. So things on your hard-working or busy day, I myself see things of articles, and I will present them as trying to give a news outlet source for you and trying to be on the regular when things are not going awry. Passerbys, if you should happen to go up under the ocean, crawled up on the highest mountains, rolled on the back of a goat, yodeled up, and somehow fell in a hole and fell in this show right here, welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. We welcome you here. Like for you to subscribe, hit the like button there. But if you should see something in the library that you just don't like, well, give us a second chance. Maybe sometimes because the truth don't need no partner. It's like a rock thrown at a crowded door. Something that might be said might just irritate you. But again, was it factual? Was it the truth? Maybe you can grow and learn. We all here to learn. So if you should happen to be and stay, welcome. I want to give an apology to a sister if she should be hearing this. Her name is Oasis King. For some odd reason, sister, I seen the King and then put that Oasis at first, and I said brother, but I went back and edited it, and I said sister. So please take my apology from the Black MINDZ News as a what they call a retraction of something we had said. Now let's get into the show. All right, so let's get into this, right? We have to get into it because, again, it has something to do with us, right? So let me go ahead and play this, and she'll be right back.
Nathan Bedford Forrest has been a name connected to protests and petitions in recent years here in the mid-state. Well, tomorrow, Tennessee will actually observe a day named after him.
Governor Bill Lee, like other governors before him, signed a proclamation declaring July 13th in honor of the Confederate general. News Channel 5's Kelsey Gibbs is live at the Capitol. And Kelsey, many people are asking the governor why he did this.
Well, Carrie, according to the law, governors are required by the statute to issue a series of proclamations, and Nathan Bedford Forrest Day being one of them. But now there is a push to change the law.
To do this again, to honor Nathan Bedford Forrest again with a day, is just saying, guess what? If you're a person of color, we don't care about you.
July 13 is Nathan Bedford Forrest Day in Tennessee.
How can you be a person of humanity? How? And then support that statue, support a day when he was the head of the KKK. How can you do that?
For 2 years, Jim Wagamuth and Veterans for Peace have been pushing a petition to remove the Nathan Bedford Forrest bust from the Capitol. Now he learns the news that Governor Bill Lee signed a proclamation honoring the Confederate general and early leader of the KKK with his own day.
The idea that we're honoring him with a bust in the Capitol is an embarrassment to Tennessee.
Nathan Bedford Forrest Day has been observed in the state for nearly 50 years.
The obvious thing is change the law.
State Representative Vincent Dixie calls the signing of the proclamation an embarrassment.
But now you're signing a proclamation honoring the same people that fought to keep people that look like me, African Americans, in slavery.
Wagamuth says he's disappointed in the governor.
It would have been so easy for him to do one thing decent. Just one thing decent.
Now, Representative Dixie says he is willing to work with other lawmakers to remove Nathan Bedford Forrest Day from the law, and he's asking Governor Lee to join him in the efforts. Now, if you want to read the full statement from the governor's office, just look for this story on newschannel5.com. But for now, we're reporting live at the state capitol. Kelsey Gibbs, News Channel 5.
A Democratic state representative says he has created a bill to end Nathan Bedford Forrest Day in Tennessee.
That day just so happens to be today. A law required Governor Haslam to recognize the Confederate general and KKK leader, even after Governor Haslam called for a bust of Forrest to be removed from the state capitol. But how are those proposals going over in the town where Forrest grew up? News Channel 5's Jason Lamb has the story from Chapel Hill, new at 6:30.
He enlisted as a private in the Confederate Army, rose from the rank of private to lieutenant general.
Gene Andrews with the Sons of Confederate Veterans can tell you there's a lot of history in Nathan Bedford Forrest's boyhood home outside of Chapel Hill.
He was the, more or less, I guess, the father of modern armored warfare.
Forrest's influence extends into Chapel Hill itself. There's Nathan and Forrest Streets, this marker at the home where he was born. The high school is named after him, and this memorial just a few feet from Chapel Hill's town hall.
We realize that we do have historical roots to the things in the past here.
The town's mayor says on this day meant to recognize Forrest, there's a lot of controversy this year surrounding the Confederate general and KKK leader.
People concerned about the Nathan Bedford Forrest flag, the Forrest School, the name of the Forrest School. There's some concern, that to change the name may be out there.
Just this afternoon, Democratic State Representative Mike Stewart of Nashville says he filed a bill to end Nathan Bedford Forrest Day across the state. And Governor Haslam has come out in favor of removing a bust of Forrest from the state capitol. But the Chapel Hill mayor says people shouldn't expect the same with the memorials and school name in Chapel Hill.
I think if it's left to this community for us to handle our own issues and stuff, I don't see it changing the name of the school.
He says especially in the town where Forrest grew up, there's an historical significance in Chapel Hill that he hopes isn't altered by outsiders.
We want to be sensitive to the issues that are going on in the world. At the same time, realize that there is a history here that we can erase it.
It's an argument that's been used across the country, which now takes on new meaning in Forrest's hometown. The mayor says the aldermen here all seem to be in agreement that they don't want to see the school name or any of the memorials here change anytime soon. Reporting from Chapel Hill tonight, Jason Lamb, News Channel 5 HD.
When it comes to the bust of Nathan Bedford Forrest in the state capitol, a commission will be meeting this Friday at 9 a.m. to discuss what the possible next steps for the bust could be.
All right, so there's a little news video for you about the Nathan Bedford Forrest and about his home in Chapel. They seem to be wanting to get rid of the bus and some other thing, but in Tennessee, looks like they decided that they want to go ahead and commemorate, and not also just commemorate, they also are going ahead and make a day for him. And again, as you heard, the one individual that was out there, he was kind of like, he's lost the words to say, well, why would you do something like that when we understand the history aspect of it in this day and age where you're trying to mend and make some differences and talking about humanitarian work, that this individual wants to commemorate somebody who would be against all this that is what is today. So again, the one aspect will be, some people will be like, well, from a history for us, this is what our ancestors was, and we're proud of our ancestors. Okay, no, that's fine. But then we, as the descendant, again, BADOS and ADOS of this land, we'll be in opposition to it because, again, not so much as the individual, just for him as his existence, is what has happened in history, what he's contributed to history, and how he is this catalyst for this undermined current that is reinvigorating his head today and lashing out. He is being a subliminal call to galvanize the troop, if you want to say it that way. Let me give you the background history to this as I laid it out. So let me go ahead and give you this. And before I do that, let me, for those who might be new to this over here, this is how you can do some contributions by just, something simple like this. Something as simple as this, right? Okay, so now you can do something like that, or you can also do something to the fact of something like, we have other ways that we do stuff, right? So maybe you would like to do this. All right, so Tennessee is celebrating Nathan Bedford Forrest Day, right? This was coming up out of the slate, as you see on your screen there. Tennessee is celebrating Nathan Bedford Forrest Day, so here's the original congressional report about Fort Pillow, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to lay out in this article about what really transpired in the Fort Pillow, because there was a controversy as to, did they actually fight? Did they surrender and you just massacre them based on the simple fact of why would you do that according to the protocols of war? So it talks about how July 13th being the birthday of Nathan Bedford Forrest, that Tennessee, ever since the year of 1921, had been celebrating this as a commemorative to Bedford Forrest, or Nathan Bedford Forrest, right? And it was a representative named John Travis of Henry County who got that bill passed, marking the 100th birthday of the state's most illustrious, they say, human trafficker, traitor, and war criminal, prisoner of labor, and enthusiast. And last but not least, he was also the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. So what we see is Governor Bill Lee signed a proclamation this week honoring Forrest as a recognized military figure in American history. Now, again, was he in the military? Do historians recognize him as that? They do. But as a African descendant or American descendant of slave, black American descendant of slave, that does not sit well with us for the simple fact that, again, there's two sides to this story. Now, again, you may, those who are, again, people who are enthusiasts about military and wars and what transpired and historians and so forth. And according to what the story tells us that happened at Fort Pillow of April of 1864, it said a lot of things took place that against the protocols of prisoners of war. And what they end up doing, they end up having two individuals named Wade and Gooch. One name was Benjamin Wade and the other name was Daniel Gooch. And what they want to do is they want to go around interviewing eyewitnesses what had took place. And a lot of people deemed them as extreme radicals and said they were more dedicated to the destruction of the South. And that a lot of the stuff that they were writing, they said was propaganda written by extreme reactionaries, right? And so what we see is that Gooch and Wade end up getting a subcommittee put together or end up being the ones who were going to run it. And so what they did is they went to several states. I think Illinois being one, Tennessee, and a couple other states, right, that they all end up going to, right? And what they did is they did personal interviews with anybody who could have any recollection of what took place. And what they seen was that a lot of stories was matching up to that the black regiment who surrendered to them did it under the protocols of surrender of war. There was some stuff that Nathan Bedford had said that if they didn't surrender, that there would be no place for them to hide. Right? And so that was all unanimous through those who interviewed, all kept stating the same thing. And so what ended up happening is our ancestors end up getting slaughtered back on this particular day of April of 1864, right? And let me get a little background because, again, like I said, Tennessee just did July 13th, which would have been his birthday. I think his birthday goes back to like July 13, 1821. And so you see they made the commemorate 100-year anniversary. But how would that be 100-year anniversary when he was born in 1821, right? So let's say if you inaugurated in 1921, how could you be just last week commemorating 100 years of celebratory of this individual? Or I guess maybe they're just making this the mark for them to start. But again, they said in the article 100 years, but it can't be 100 years because it's not 2021 yet, right? So you kind of jumping the gun as to trying to push forward something to commemorate somebody, and then let's look at the day and the political heightness and the division that's happening in this land and realize that why would this be a time to be propagating that to the nation? Well, again, it's sending a subliminal. Remember I say they always talking connotatively and subliminally. So you're sending out the subliminal message to say, hey, we did it once, we can do it again. If this is a national hero, again, for those who would be under the umbrella of white supremacy and all that that entails, because again, they said he was also the first, Grand Wizard. Now, accordingly, they say in history, or how they write, they say the Klan had started 2 years prior, but it was just kind of like groups, but nothing really formulated. But based on after what then transpired here with the Fort Pillow massacre, what better person to have as your leader decorated than to have Nathan Bedford Forrest? So again, we see prior, before he even became this, individual as military, that he had already amassed substantial wealth. He was known as a cotton plantation owner. He owned horse and cattle and real estate. And he also was a slave trader, right? And so it was around by 1861, they said that he had gone ahead and enlisted into the Confederate Army. And he was one of the few who was enlisted as a private and got promoted to general without any prior military training. So what we think was it had something to do with his standing, his social standing, right? He had a social standing already, so you couldn't have this individual who would be considered wealthy to be with the commons and equal. So, again, you know how it is. He got the, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So based on him and the name he had, they promoted him. So now here he was again, somebody, again, based on, now here's the Civil War taking place. And again, the mantra is they try to tell us that Civil War was about freeing black people. You would be a damn fool if you really believe that shit. Civil War was not about freeing black folks. No matter how much they tried to revise history and try to take an undertone and say, no, that's not what this is. No, it was about those who had that power in the South and understand the expansion of the West. There was going to be an expansion. And with that expansion, that means these business was going to grow. That means their power in government was going to grow. And then eventually they would end up taking over that, which again, you try to make the difference between the North and the South, as if they really wasn't one. There was only their conflict due to the simple fact one was agriculture and the other one was coming industrial, right? It was trying to imitate the motherland. And so with that being said, they use that as the mantra for those in the North, because Lincoln told you in the debate, he didn't care whether the slaves were free or not. It's about saving the Union. So we take the words of Lincoln, we know that you wasn't fighting about the slaves. And if you read some of the other things that they wrote and said that Lincoln said, he didn't care one way or no about black folks, right? So that's just a lie. So again, he was an individual. Again, what better person would you have as a commander than have somebody who was part of the, the foundation that is the economic, drive to what the South was about, than to have somebody like this as a commander. He already, as again, having that kind of economic powers and assets, a lot of men that probably were around him somehow either worked for him, knew about him, or had family members or friends who worked for him. So with that being said, so they got to this point where it was April of 1864. They call it one of the bleakest and saddest events of American military history. I don't know why they say that. Now, again, revising history again, when they talk about then, I don't think they believe it in that way. But I guess it's just it's a black eye to military, and then that, which again is supposed to have, rules and regulations to war, right? It's kind of like you see nations go to war and then they will sue the other ones, right, for reparations pretty much because of the damage that was caused in war or what they have lost. And so they had to change the rules of engagement to fit so that certain things, that's why they don't want to destroy the buildings. And then, matter of fact, when Germany started using the gas, they even had to start making that, as that was inhumane in their sense. I don't know, right? Inhumane to use gas, right? And so certain nations signed off in the Geneva Convention about not using the gas, but the United States really didn't do that. Russia didn't really do that, right? That's why they can use the damn tear gas at the time. They changed it from the tear gas now to now they're going to electrocute your ass with the damn taser, right? But that's one of the rules of engagement, that you couldn't do that because, again, it costs too much when you're tearing down a lot of the property. So they said, we'll find other ways. And so Germany came up with the gas. They said, no, that shit, when you see that Farben, what's it called, G Farben, FB Farben and all them, and they made all that shit. And they was, when you see those, again, there's certain books out there, Higher Form of Killing and shit like that. When you read those type of books, you'll see that kind of stuff. But anyway, moving forward. So what you see is, you see that they end up again, they call this massacre, the Union troops who had surrendered. Now, they say most of them was black, but primarily was a black regiment. And they said there was some white Southern Tennessees fighting for the Union. And the battle was called the Battle of Fort Pillow. And they blamed Forrest for the massacre, and that news had strengthened the North resolve. And it was based on this, again, it would galvanize the North to get into what they did. Now, apparently it said that Forrest had joined the Ku Klux Klan back in 1867. They said about 2 years after its founding. And he was elected the very first Grand Wizard, okay? And prior to that, the group was a loose collection of local factions that was throughout the former Confederacy. Now, again, we know they used violence, threats of violence, to maintain white control over the newly enfranchised slaves. Now, again, here it is, we being so-called emancipated, and then you have this band that's, to keep things intact. Now, again, let's look at it this way. Why don't people just be honest about what really took place in history? You know how today, when you look at immigration, now everybody has different opinions about immigration. Some people are pro, allowing people to come in at all expense. We'll do what we got to do to go in our pockets and make sure that everything is good for them. All right, that could be a noble situation, but again, it depends on what side of the coin you on. There's other people who look at it, well, it may bring a disadvantage to already disadvantaged people, and it seems like, purses and wallets can be open, but you have a people who already been here who you won't open purse or wallet and seem to be having every excuse in the book and every notion to say that they could do the same thing you do, not recognizing the obstacles and traps and legislations and laws that have prohibited a lot of the natural growth that some people have that other people of these people can have. And so some people in that position may have problems with that because they say, well, hey, wait a minute. I've been here since my ancestors have been here. We built, picked, did all this. We can't get nothing. Then you can allow and open your purse and get all this for them. And so that's never going to be, again, that's how you have to look at it. So immigration and that aspect going to have a divide in it. So that would be the same way when you look at when they emancipated our ancestors. At that time, you would consider us kind of like an immigrant, even though we're not immigrants, but we were like immigrants in their eyes. We're coming in, we're skilled more than some of the, the lower whites. We got all the skills because we're coming up the plantation. We're doing all the damn work. So we know all the skills. We know how to do all the agriculture. We know how to build. We know all that we doing. So now that we're free, if now we start coming into the marketplace, the labor market, you understand? One, because of the lack of knowledge that we have, people will take advantage. See, you take advantage of somebody who don't have the knowledge and you can pay them less versus somebody who's more knowledgeable, then you have to pay them according to what, again, the scale of the job has weighed according to how this job performs and so forth and skills, and you can negotiate that. But when you don't have that and somebody said, well, okay, we're going to give you $2 when this job pays $12. Now, people will say that's wrong. Now, again, there's two sides to that. There's those people who would be in business that look at that as a good opportunity to get them more profits. And then there's the people who on the other side that say, well, I should be getting first dibs because I was here first and you're undermining me. Now, again, that's the way they was looking at our ancestors being emancipated at that particular time. Are we immigrants? Hell no. We're not immigrants. But that's the way they were looking at us, right? And so they used that as this divide in this nation, right? That's how this divide got, is because it had a lot to do with, like those people who looked at when Hispanics and Mexicans came to this nation could build homes and all this stuff, but they was undermining you because why? They're thirsty. They don't got nothing. And so everybody got undercut. But yet, everybody angry, but why did you look at the black people about your, being deprived and companies taking a step and going to places to undermine you? But you look at us. And yet we've been here as long as you, if not longer than most. And we could go through history of things just like this here, and we can show you time and time again of these type of atrocities. And yet on the table on this day of 2019, going on 2020, going on the 400-year anniversary next month, these descendants are talking about the atrocities laid upon their people and want some retribution to be remedied due to not just what happened to them, but the systemicness that continue to persevere through that time all the way to now, even though that most people will not recognize and try to say that it's a figment of our imagination. So what we see is this individual here, Nathan Bedford, right? This Nathan Bedford Forrest, right? Again, so they, after they established him as a wizard, their whole mantra, again, was violence and to maintain white control. And they first thing they wanted to do was what? Suppress voting rights of blacks. And the Republicans in the South, what they say. They say blacks and the Republicans, because again, it was the Republicans that was the one that ended up freeing, according to, if you want to say what Lincoln was, that it was the Republicans, the one that got the credited for what happened with emancipating, right? And so, because it was a power game, again, politically, again, look at the massive wealth, assets, and control that slave owners had. Then using the numbers that they had with the population of their, slaves, that allowed them to have a lot of say-so in politics. So again, it was only be a matter of time before this whole country would have been that, according to the way they try to make us look at it, right? And so this is what their whole agenda was, to make sure that we couldn't get no political power. And the intimidation started around 1868, because it's funny how black folks had rights to vote right after that, but it got taken away, right? So it was Forrest expressed disillusionment with the lack of discipline among various white supremacist groups around the South that issued a letter ordering the dissolution of the Ku Klux Klan and the destruction of its costumes, right? And then he withdrew from the organization, as they say. Then, lacking coordinated leadership and facing strong opposition, President Grant, his first incarnation of the Klan, gradually disappeared. Now, that's what they tell us, that based on that and what took place, the Klan seemed to have just fell away. Okay, we lost Nathan Bedford. He's not no longer, so we don't have the leadership anymore. That ain't damn true. Right? That's not true. So you see later on in his life, Nathan Bedford him and his wife, they end up going to a place called President's Island around in 1875. And they established and started a business venture, and they relied on convict lease system, right? Convict labor, which is kind of one of the themes still to this day when you think about it. So we're looking at about 1866, the state of Mississippi secured a labor force of about 117 convicts, and Forrest had leased them, right? And among those that was convicted in his employ were about 18 blacks and 4 white female prisoners, they say, right? Along with 35 white men and the 60 black men convicts who worked the land of Forrest Island Plantation. Okay? And that's what they did, right? So he was able to get this cheap labor. He had about 1,300 acres of land, but he let them work about 800 of it, right? Yeah, this is the latest part of his life. He still, that's the way he seen the natural way of business, huh? This is the way it was, right? And so that's what we have to look at. This is how these mugs got down. This is how they did what they did. And so that's just the way people feel like, some things don't change. It's always going to be the same way. And still to this day, we still see the residue. If not, the same things intact to this day. They just don't seem and appear the same way. So let's look at the massacre at Fort Pillow. Let me go ahead and just tell you that, right? And because, again, you may not have never heard, but again, we'd already talked about that again once upon a time on this show, for those who are avid watchers of the show, right? So I'm just giving you some information today about an article that came out, right? So, again, if you want to have any more to look at it, that's up to you. If you want to, you can do it. Otherwise, I'm giving you pretty much a nice big chunk of it. You ain't got to take my word for it. I want you to go do your own research. So, again, Fort Pillow Massacre in Tennessee was on April 12, 1864. It said about 300 African-American soldiers were killed. Now, the most controversial event of the American Civil War between 1861 and 1865. Now, according to it said most of them had surrendered again. Remember the whole aspect of Wade and Gooch was to set up this whole, again, kind of like the H.R. 40 bill, right? Trying to get a commission so we can go back and look at it and see what was wrong, right? I wonder if any reparation could be done for that. If you can trace your, again, Black Americans, African, ADOS in this land have a lot to put on the plate. When we start laying down cards to play this game, this is why I think nobody really wants to deal, because we don't have if everybody just wants to say slavery, we got a lot of cards to play, right? So we see that, again, 300 men being killed. They said about 15 to 2,500 troops surrounded the fort. And it said somewhere about 3:30 p.m., it was Forrest who demanded surrender from the Union troops, hoping for reinforcement, which was the leader for them, but Bradford was the black regiment leader, name was Bradford. He was hoping that there was going to be some reinforcement from the Union boats arriving from around the Mississippi River. And so they called for a 1-hour ceasefire, right? So according to what they write in history, they say Forrest had spotted the Union boats approaching, and he sent men to block the possible reinforcement. And he said he declared his troops would storm the fort in 20 minutes, which they did. And so with little resistance, because again, remember they had already surrendered. So they end up what? The account said about 300 soldiers were gunned down by the Confederate forces. They say majority of them was black, but primarily it was a black regiment. And, this supposedly had infuriated the North when the word got back what they had did. Now, again, look at the individual, the position, the slave owner, slave trader, real estate, horses, all that. This was a man of prominent stature of that time. Would be no different than we see today of the things that people hide behind the curtain are doing, even though you don't see them. They're the Pachetto or Pinocchio making things happen, even though you don't see them. But this is somebody who can get their hands dirty and right there and got the power to determine. It's kind of like, again, like sometimes we look at the officers. Again, they have that power to determine life, death, and so forth, right? Ruin your life and so forth. Or relieve you, one of the two or three, right? And so he see these black soldiers, opposition to him, and his mind have been, he can't see black folks in no equalness. To say inhumane, he didn't even look at them as humans. And so to have gone ahead and massacred them in the style that they did, irregardless to the fact of the protocols of war, that didn't matter. And so here it is, Tennessee, in this day and age, wants to propagate this up to send a subliminal message. We did it to them once, we can do it to them again. Right? So it's all little subliminal messages that's being sent out to certain people who have, again, like the Wi-Fi picking up the frequency. May not be for everybody, but a lot of them are understanding what's being said. And so we have to be vigilant in understanding that these are the things that's being said, even though you may not be paying attention. To commemorate somebody is one thing, but it has a twofold cut, because remember, they're connotative talking people. Remember, our Indians say they speak with a forked tongue. Well, he always in a forked tongue because he always got another hand. He show you this hand, but you better watch the other hand, right? He's doing the magic trick on you. And so I just wanted to bring this for those who did not hear, and here's a little bit of background to it. Again, this is Black MINDZ News. I'm the most hated show on the Black Corner of the Internet. I'm your whiteologist, Mr. Blow Your Mind, and this here is another show for today. And today's date is July 16, 2019. All right. Also, I want to put a note in this is the fact that it is this event here of the Fort Pillow massacre that is the catalyst that is going to create what we just had, Memorial Day. Remember that? Remember I gave you the history about Memorial Day. Memorial Day was our ancestors who went and repatriated. Right? Repatriate means to take the body and remove them and put them back to its rightful place for burial. This is how you get Memorial Day, because it was our ancestors who went there, retrieved those bodies, and gave them their proper burial. So when they look at you and they talk about this Memorial Day, no, they're talking about it as in from a United States military. No, that comes from our ancestors repatriating the bodies that were in this Fort Pillow situation. And this is that story for today. To the next time, y'all, stay black, love, and all that. Again, this is the most hated show in the Black Corner of the Internet. And you know how we got to leave out of here, right? We got to do it right. That's why we don't do it at all, right? So until then, next show, y'all. Peace, love, and all that.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
I'm here to tell you tonight that the businessmen, the mayor of this city, the police commissioner of this city, and everybody in the white power structure of this city must take a responsibility for everything.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Luther and I and everyone in this arena tonight are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Race is when you use your power and influence to subject people into inferiority. Utterances can't be racist.
Look around you, man. They own this shit. They own this couch you sitting on, them shoes you got on your feet, this building, this school, this country, you. We're behind enemy lines, dog.
So you must first of all remember that this system was not originally designed with black people in mind. Right on. And it definitely was not prepared for black people to, in the end, begin to demand their rights and an equal share in this country which they've died for. Right on. Hey, and we definitely are not going back to Africa.
In the church, we used to sing the song, "Good news, the chariot is coming." While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What good news for the sheep might be bad news to the world.
They say, oh, things are getting so much better for you. In 1849, it was hitting blacks on the head 100 times a day. In 1990, they hit them 48 times a day. Isn't it better? Oh, it's got to be better. You're saying 52 blows.
The only purpose of most black Americans on earth today is to destroy.
I think that's noble. Italians love Italians. When Irish love Irish. But when a nigga loves a nigga, it's an unpardonable sin. They have blood in their hands. When we say they have blood in their hands, we are not saying him, George Bezos, went and killed. But white people colonized us. They dispersed us. They enslaved our people. They sucked our economy dry. They are still sucking it dry even today. That's white people. Tony Blair, George Bush, Napoleon Bonaparte, Leopold, Adolf Hitler, Benjamin Netanyahu. All white people, they are the same. They are racist and they are full of hate.
I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Our world is coming crumbling down. The coons are coming.
You got to understand that white America has an uncanny way of making the victim the victimizer. Excuse me, master, for putting my head in the way of your club. Not that your club is brutalizing my head and putting hickeys on it. My head got in the way of your free swing and broke your shiny stick, and I want to apologize for that.
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
There are more connections in the human body than there are stars in the galaxy. We possess a gigantic network of information to which we have almost no access.
Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the sixth version.
5 months before me. 3. There are only 2 possible explanations. They were 5 months before me. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
Control me! I'm gonna smash you to bits! Yeah! Kill you! You can't make me do anything like trick! Choice. The problem is choice.
Let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptists. We're not brutalized because we're Methodists. We're not brutalized because we're Muslim. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Because white people made him to be what he is. They made him to look evil, because that's their role, to make all of us black people to look evil and to hate ourselves. I can't hate you.
You're a nigga till you die. If you're a poor nigga, you're a poor nigga. If you're a rich nigga, you're a rich nigga. But you never stop being a nigga, and if you get to be educated, you're just an educated nigga.
Well, I'm told every day I'm on air that I'm racist because I call out racism. That is maddening to me, and I'm crying about it because it's crazy.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching you and I and trying to tell the white man to get this powder keg out of his house. Let the black man separate from his house. Let the black man have his own house. Let the black man have his own land and his own property.
I thought the bitch was white! Damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
That's true.
I think that white people are so guilty, knowing what they've done to black people, that they feel if the deeds were reversed, they would hate the black man if he had done the same thing to them. So it's actually, it reflects a guilt complex on the part of whites when they ask us, do we hate them. And if you notice, Uncle Sam has formed a habit of going all over the world. He calls it the ugly American or the American image. He thinks that everybody hates him because it's a guilt complex. And if you think that if you are worried about Europeans hating you, and they're your allies and your cousins, well, naturally it would follow for you to think that Negroes in this country would hate you, especially in light of what has been done to black people in this country by white people.
Now, check it out. The white ball dominates everything, right? Knocks the shit out the yellow ball, the red ball, right? And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
But you have to see that all of this is hypocrisy.
I love Malcolm. Malcolm called me the Sunday that he died. I was working Basin Street East. He said, "Brother Greg, you coming by today?" And I said, "Malcolm, I love you." And I said, "I love you so much, I don't even want to take a chance to be there." He said, "What do you mean, Brother Greg?" I said, "Well, I close tonight, Sunday night at Basin Street East." And I said, "But I had my wife book me a flight into Chicago at 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to Chicago, and I had way beneath my salary booked me into a college about 10 miles from the airport. And I'm going to go there and speak this afternoon, and I'm going to stay there until they tell me you dead. Because I'm not going to let this government get two of us for the price of one. And I'm going to call Adam Clayton Powell when I finish talking to you and beg him not to come there. Because today, the United States government is going to get you.